Hey guys, what's up? This is Miro and welcome to another video. So this week has been a very busy one for me. It's the first time in a long while that I had to work with green screen footage every day for the whole week. On top of that, I had to rotoscope a full minute of footage, complete with moving hands and everything. A full minute. Usually for work, I rotoscope maybe 2 seconds a clip, 5 seconds a clip, but a full minute, that was a first. And it was a pain for sure. This kind of work, rotoscoping and keying, sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard, most of the time it's tedious, and there's always just that one time when your plugins don't work. That being said, this past week has been a great exercise. I really stretched my brain muscles a lot for this one. When you're out working on site, it's usually easy to forget all the things you've learned throughout the years, You have a deadline, you're stressed, you're doing all these things, so you also can't spend 20 minutes on Google trying to look for the best solutions for your problem. And because you're so stressed trying to meet a deadline, you're not thinking straight. So with this green screen week behind me, I'd like to share with you guys these 10 things to remember when you're keying and rotoscoping. Number 10, expect bad footage. This is in regards to the footage itself and how far you are down the pipeline. Usually, somebody will shoot it, somebody is gonna color correct it, it's gonna get compressed and rendered and downsized before it gets down to you. They shot at 8K, you get 1080p footage. I don't know what it is with 1080p, but people seem to be hanging on to it. From compressed videos to over color corrected footage, the detail and the info in that file has already plummeted before it reaches you. When you do freelance work, you're gonna be working with people in different industries. Some clients aren't filmmakers, nor do they hire professional videographers. And sometimes you just have to work with what they give. It's either from a Red camera or an iPhone. So be prepared to get footage in the worst conditions possible. Even if you get high-res footage, sometimes it's poorly lit, there's so much noise, There's tons of factors to make it bad footage. Number 9, reduce noise. In the event that you're given bad footage, noise is usually the culprit that makes it bad. If there's tons of noise in your footage, you're gonna get some jittering or some artifacting. Even if you get high-res footage, but your camera can't handle high ISO, you're gonna get those noise. It's good practice to reduce noise before you start any keying. It's gonna smoothen out your background and reduce jittering and artifacting all throughout. Number 8, mask out unneeded areas. This is extremely helpful if you have a green screen that has a hotspot on it. You're gonna have a bright spot behind your subject and some dark vignetting around them. You can simply mask your subject so you don't have to deal with all that darkness around the green screen. You don't need to adjust your plugin to compensate for all that darkness around your hotspot. Basically, any extra real estate that you don't need, simply mask it out so you don't have to deal with it. Number 7, rotoscope or mask non-moving objects. If this wall behind me was green, you can simply mask that bookshelf out and this couch out, and you're good. You don't even need to use keying plugins. If it's not moving, you can mask it out. You don't need to adjust the settings of your keying plugin for the lamp, the chair, the table. It's gonna be cleaner and it's gonna save you time. Number 6, track first and isolate fast moving parts and hair. The plugin settings for fast moving parts and hair should often be different than the rest of your subject. You would want softer feathering and maybe less extractions if you're dealing with a lot of blur, a lot of depth of field, or maybe a lot of opacity differences. Whenever you start seeing your subject doing this, you should go ahead and track those hands, because those hands are gonna need a different setting on your plugin. You should always isolate parts that need different treatments. Tracking hands in fast-moving parts saves you time in isolating parts. Number 5, the less keyframes, the better. This is exactly why you should track first before you do any kind of rotoscoping. When you get the movement down, you only need to do minor tweaks and adjustments. To get a smooth and more natural rotoscope, you should use less keyframes to reduce any kind of weird jittering. Try to look at your subject and see how it flows, Get the feel of the direction of the moving parts. It's always good to keyframe the starts and ends of the movement and then just adjust the in-betweens. Number 4, use different plugins. In some situations, Primat Keyer can't do it alone, Key light can't do it alone. In the real world, sometimes you need the help of masks, extract, color range, and everything else in your arsenal. Some plugins work better in certain kinds of situations. Like for me, key light works best with hair, and Primat Keyer works well with moving objects and motion blur. Experiment, test, and be creative with your use of plugins. Sometimes you don't even need a plugin, and all you need is one of the built-in tools in After Effects. And that brings me to number 3, which is AE Roto Brush is your friend. The Roto Brush is one of those tools that, when it got announced, everybody was all over it. There was a lot of hype behind it. Everybody was excited to have this Roto Brush tool in After Effects. People tried it, made some tests, probably didn't work as well as we expected, and people just forgot about it. But I think that was around 10 years ago. Like all the plugins in your arsenal, the Roto Brush is also good in certain situations. When you're dealing with pretty simple footage, it's always good to try out the AE Roto Brush tool. It's fast, it's automated, and if it works really well. If you use AE Roto Brush correctly and to its full potential, it's gonna save you a lot of time. Number 2, use your keyed comp as a matte. There's certain situations where you have to make a lot of color adjustments. You either have to desaturate, bump up the levels, the brightness and contrast, change the colors, just to get that background out and extract your subject from it. By then your footage isn't looking the way it should be, but you got the background out, you keyed it. Simply use that comp as either a Luma matte or an Alpha matte, whichever works for you, and you're good to go. And the last one to remember, and number 1 on my list, be mindful of the time, deadline is king. Like any other work, you have a deadline. It doesn't matter if you know X amount of plugins, it doesn't matter if you know X amount of techniques. If it's gonna take you more than 4 hours to get that clip done, and you have 5 to do in a day, if you can't get it done on time, you shouldn't be doing it. In some occasions, it may be worth experimenting and trying out different stuff, but if it's not working, you should learn to abandon it and just stick to your gut and do what's best for the footage. Meeting your client's needs comes first. If they give you 8K footage and you have only 4 clips to work with in a span of a week, use all the plugins you can, use all the techniques you can to give your client that cleanest key or rotoscope that you can do. If on the other hand you're given bad footage and you have 25 to do in a day, just use the plugin that you're most comfortable with and you should be good. It's worth practicing and familiarizing yourself with all the plugins that you can use with rotoscoping and keying. You can't just stick with one way of doing things, and that's how you're gonna get stuck. So there you go guys, those are my 10 things to remember when you're keying and rotoscoping. Thank you guys for sticking around and watching the whole video. I hope you learned something, or if you didn't learn anything new, I hope you were refreshed and you were reminded of some of these techniques. Either way, I hope this video helped you out. I hope you're not watching this while you're at work, or if you're on your lunch break, that's cool. You know, it's a good refresher. So thank you again guys for watching this video. If you like it, hit that like button. And if you want to see more of my content, hit that subscribe button now.